Hey everyone, welcome to the Not a Lonely Coffee Break podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Meaghan. We're a podcast about coffee and work, but make it queer.
I had so much fun at our podcast anniversary celebration.
Yes. It was
Um,
so nice to see everybody just gather and talk and reminisce.
I know I think it was so special just to see how many people came out because I know you and I behind the scenes, we were like, what if nobody comes? What if no one wants
Nobody
to hang
loves
out with
us.
us? But we had such a great turnout of guests, fans of the show, and I just loved every minute of it.
Mm-hmm. It was
So
so
thank
much
you
fun.
everyone who came out to help us celebrate and have really great conversation with us. And we cannot wait for year two.
Yes, as it has already begun. Welcome.
Welcome to year two.
And we're back.
And yes, so recently we've done a few episodes where we felt like it was important to highlight some of these inspirational and important people who really made an impact on some of those early LGBTQ plus rights movements and activist work. And I've just really enjoyed learning about some of these folks. And I know that some of our listeners have also shared with us that they really appreciated those episodes as well. So we thought we would continue to highlight some of these important people.
Yeah, so I'm super enjoying this journey. I think we should talk about Marsha P. Johnson.
Yes. So I am excited to talk about good old Marsha because she's someone that, I don't know. I feel like I might be judged when I say this. I'm probably like a bad queer because I know who Marsha P. Johnson is, but I only know kind of like tidbits, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I never really knew much about her other than that she was like a prominent trans individual, particularly in the Stonewall riots, but I didn't really know much about her. And so I was really excited when we decided to pick Marsha P. Johnson to dig a little bit deeper into because I was like, I now feel like I will get to know her a little bit more and the important work that she did.
Yeah. I bet a lot of it too, I think she's a Black transgender
Yeah.
woman. So at this time when she was brought up, Black Americans, African Americans were
Hmm.
still trying to find their freedom. And so I bet, a lot of that had to do with, maybe there's not enough information on her. So I'm super excited to
Hmm.
get talking about her. So yeah, she was born in 1945, August 24th in New Jersey. She grew up with a family of 7 children, herself included. She was the fifth. And then, but her parents were working class. They lived in a Christian household. So I'm sure growing up, it was a little, likely very difficult, as we're going to find out. But yeah, no, so she grew up in a pretty large family, which is
Yeah.
wild. You don't see 7 kids anymore.
I know, right? So yeah, so she was male at birth, but at a young age, some of our research indicated that even as early as like 5, she started wearing dresses and clothing that she felt like reflected herself, which was mainly clothing that was historically created for women. And so this, of course, since it was a young age, it did lead to some bullying by other children. And she also unfortunately experienced a sexual assault at the age of 13. So all of this sort of led to her feeling pressured to stop dressing with that more feminine appearance that she preferred and enjoyed dressing as. But once she graduated high school at 17, she actually went ahead and moved to New York City, and she took one bag of clothes with her and she had $15 to her name. And that's also when she was able to return to dressing like her true self and start living a little bit more authentically as the person that she always knew that she was.
Yeah, so she would go on to adopt her full name as Marsha P. Johnson, with the P saying, pay it no mind, which is, thank you, became her personal motto. But she did maintain a relationship with her family, although she moved to New York. But when she moved to New York, it was not very easy. She left with the $15, but she did find that she was struggling to make ends meet. She
Mm.
was homeless, so she was moving from friends' couches or sleeping in different hotels or movie theaters even, so just really struggling to find work, and she was working as a sex worker for a little while, and so it was just always having to find different odd jobs as well, looking and working at tables or working performing in drag shows, which is where she became very famous and a really big staple of the community. But she always had a loving heart. She was uh always within the community. She would go and meet Sylvia Rivera at 11 years old, who was also experiencing homelessness. And she was a mother figure to Sylvia, teaching her ways to stay street safe, acting smart, loving
Mhm.
herself, protecting herself. Sylvia was also trans, so also helping her get through those struggles as well and really finding a little family between the two of them.
Mhm. Yeah, so Marsha, I think this is interesting too. Marsha described herself as a gay person, a drag queen. She used she, her pronouns. She also identified as a transvestite. And I think it's important to highlight for some of our listeners that I know that maybe some of the terminology is still new for some of you. You might be like, transvestite? I thought that was kind of a negative connotation and we're not supposed to use that term. But remember, this was back in the day, back in some of those early movements, and the word transgender was not actually commonly used until after Marsha passed away. And so transvestite was actually the word that was more commonly used. So she identified as a transvestite. And that's important just because later on in her life with Sylvia, they would go on to even create an organization with the term transvestite in it. So in this instance, we are not using this term sort of in a negative way. We are just using the words that Marsha used to describe herself as well. But Marsha did find herself near the Stonewall Inn when police raided the bar. You know, there are some things where people will associate Marsha as throwing the first brick, but that has actually kind of been disproven. Even Marsha herself has said that her and Sylvia, when they arrived to Stonewall, the raid had already started. And so she was not there when it started, but she was there in the early stages of it. So on June 28th, 1969 is when the Stonewall Uprising occurred. She did, of course, step up and engage and contribute to a lot of the activism and everything that followed from it. Several accounts did have Marsha deep within the fighting between the police and those individuals that were at the bar. This was also a time where many who were transgender felt like they had nothing to lose because they were being heavily discriminated upon and harassed by police. And even within, we've discussed this before, I think, but even within the LGBTQ plus movement, there was still sort of things were still kind of siloed. So Marsha and other trans individuals felt like they were was nothing to lose. So they did engage. And this also, of course, led to Marsha being heavily involved in gay rights groups. And also helped her really notice and realize that there was an additional exclusion of trans people as well as people of color. And Sylvia, her friend, was also a Latina, Latin American. And so together they founded the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, or to shorten it, it was known as STAR. And their mission would be to shelter young transgender individuals that were shunned by their families and just because of their own roots, we also saw them really invest some of their time and energy into creating opportunities for people of color that are part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah, so she also came on and was performing in drag. So she actually joined the group Hot Peaches and it got really popular, not just within the community, but Andy Warhol ended up doing like a series of prints of her, Ladies and Gentlemen. I actually seen that one. And really at this time, I mean, we're in the 70s, so
Yeah.
for her to get so much attention and being able to advocate at the same time, so they were able to interview her. And basically, she was just wanting to express like her dream of like having the gay liberation, having her
Mhm.
people liberated, having equal rights, and then also those who were incarcerated, wanting them to find freedom. I mean, there was just a lot of people who were being incarcerated, who were being outed, who were
Mhm.
literally their lives are threatened, especially for trans individuals. So for her to get all that, I guess, media and also just, national recognition is pretty huge. So that was within the 70s. By 1980, she was invited to ride in the lead car of the gay parade in New York City. So she was able to get really involved and really see people, show them her story, and then also show them the stories of like everyone else around her. But she dealt with a lot of like health issues. She had a mental health issues, going into the 1970s. So,
For me, what kind of stands out, at least up until this point of Marsha's life, is that she knew from an early age who she was. Even if she kind of had to wait to really live her authentic self, she knew that she was Marsha P. Johnson at an early age. And she used that to sort of inspire other individuals to be their authentic self. But then once Stonewall happened, was a big sounds like it was sort of not just for the whole community, it was a wake-up call even for Marsha herself, it seems like, because she really started to move more into that activist realm because she it really highlighted the exclusion that she had previously felt, but it also highlighted opportunities where she could be a voice for people who maybe didn't feel like they had a voice. And that really stands out to me. But yeah, so her and Sylvia created this organization, STAR. They worked tirelessly with supporting youth, LGBTQ plus youth. They established as a social worker, this it really stands out to me because in early social work, I think I shared this with you previously. We saw like Jane Addams create like homes for orphans and for those who are experiencing poverty. And Marcia and Sylvia kind of did that as well with their efforts with Star. They started out with sort of using a truck, like a big truck that they used that would help deliver food to these kids and as well as other resources, but they used it to kind of just help take care of these kids. And how they supplied that work was actually through they hustled every night. So they both were still engaging in some of that sex work that we had previously mentioned because that's how they were able to make money, where they were able to take care of these kids that they had a heart to make sure had better circumstances perhaps than they felt like they had. But then they realized they needed more than a truck. So then they rented a home that really it was just kind of like an abandoned building that was run down, had a bajillion issues with it. So then they rented that and they were able to fix it up and they were able to at least pay rent for that building for almost a year. It was about 8 months where they were able to support kids with all sorts of things that would, set them up for success, hopefully. And then of course, when they couldn't pay anymore, they did get evicted, but that doesn't mean that they stopped caring. And they just continued their activist work. And then of course, everything Megan mentioned sort of continued to highlight that trans people exist. People being able to see Marsha really put trans people on the map, I think. I don't know. That's how I see it at least. But she did have her own struggles. She was also living in poverty herself. She was in danger every day. She did have frequent run-ins with police. And of course, in the 90s she did contract the HIV virus, which at the time, that was a lot of what everyone was talking about. We did see many people lose their life after contracting AIDS. But she did speak publicly about it and had various bouts of ups and downs as she navigated what this diagnosis meant for her.
Johnson's body was found in the Hudson River. Tragically, She died on July 6th, 1992. She was 46. Initially, they thought that her death was a suicide, but um, a lot of her friends and close loved ones, they really just didn't feel that way. So they were able to go back and reopen the case to investigate what may have happened, but it actually did not catch a lot of media attention. They did say that in that year, 1992 was the worst year on record for the anti LGBTQ violence. So there was a lot of violence, not only on the gay community, the lesbian community, but the trans community, especially.
Mhm.
It is pretty well known, like trans voices are like the silent voices. A lot of people that you hear go missing or have violence
Mhm.
against them, their voices aren't usually heard. But her funeral, she had a huge crowd, lots of people out to support her and remember her work, all the people she helped in her community. So it wasn't until 2012 that they actually reopened the case.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it was actually some time
Mhm.
after her death. What is that? 20 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, so it was that's a shame,
Mhm.
honestly, taking that long just trying to find answers. So, but
Mhm.
anywho, the beauty of her life just really came out and she was able to support so many and give a voice to people who are still today
Mhm.
being discriminated upon, violence committed against them, murder. The trans individuals, I mean, I find that we just need to give them as much love and support as possible during this time, and just really
Mhm.
highlighting on Marsha is, I think, needed. Just like how we did with the last advocates, it just brings in that hope and that vision of always trying to help each other, and then also to find justice and freedom for
Mhm.
everybody in our community.
Yeah, in some of the research that I did, I saw that a lot of people actually described Marsha as like a mother figure to them. And it was because she did really encourage individuals to just be themselves. And that was what that P in her middle name kind of that became her motto, like pay it no mind, like be
Mhm.
who you are, live your true self. And in the words of another famous mother, Taylor Swift,
Yep.
haters are gonna hate.
That works too.
That works too. And so I think that that is sort of the takeaway I get from this is that even though Marcia experienced a lot of discrimination, a lot of violence, a lot of things that, might have really brought someone else down, she used it as an opportunity to amplify her voice even more and say like this is not okay. And even her death, tragic, terrible, we see that it was still an opportunity for people to advocate for the inclusion of trans individuals because, it was easy for the police to just say, oh, this is a suicide. And we know that this individual experienced poverty and they had a history of mental health issues, so it must be suicide. But her community said, absolutely not. Our community faces horrendous hate crimes and violence. And this just was not Marsha. She would not have killed herself. And so through their advocacy and love for this person that they were at least able to get it, declassified as a suicide and it's now classified as like an unknown cause of death. It is still unsolved, which is unfortunate, but I think it at least we did see a little bit of progress there and acknowledgement that this perhaps was a hate crime. So in 2020, New York City actually did um revealed that they were gonna name a waterfront park in Brooklyn after Marsha. So that's kinda cool. Just
Yeah.
New York honoring Marsha and all the work that she did to really amplify trans voices and the trans community for future generations of trans individuals and the impact that she made.
I love it. I mean, honestly, I love hearing these stories, like
Mhm.
hearing it just really, it gets my blood going, like honestly,
Mhm.
because it makes me feel like, I mean, I know that the struggle is real and the fight is still going, but it just really gives me hope. just knowing that
Mhm.
there's so much love and history that comes with our community. And, per the usual, we will not be silenced. So, no, that was a good one. Marsha P.
Marsha
Yes.
P.
Uh, Honestly, I don't think I've had enough coffee today. I feel crazy tired, y'all. I've already had 3 cups. I don't know what's happening.
I'm on my 2nd cup, but
You're on
I'm
your
kinda like
second.
you. There's just a lot going on, I think, and I just feel like I constantly need coffee to
Yeah.
stay awake and all of that.
Is there maybe is there like a month like dry January, but it's for coffee?
Mm,
That would be crazy.
like, we give up coffee?
For a whole month,
That sounds
like no caffeine.
that sounds like it could I think people in my community want me to have coffee.
Okay.
I feel like that would be rude for them.
Right. Like
I have heard people say that once you, I guess, detox your body from the coffee,
Mhm.
you do feel better, but it's caffeine, like, so you'd have to cut out all kind of caffeine.
Yeah, everything. Tea, soda.
Yeah. Yeah. But I have
Um,
heard people say that, like, once they go through that initial terrible detox of the caffeine, that they do feel better, but I am not brave enough to do it because I love caffeine. I need caffeine.
yeah, and it makes you feel better, takes away your problems.
I knew this woman one time. Well, I still know her. She's still here. I know
She's
this
still with
woman.
us?
She's
She's
still with
still with
us.
us.
Well, after I said it, I was like, she's not dead. I still know her. So I know this woman that I sometimes do a training with. And early on, when I was first kind of still getting to know her and stuff, we were doing a training one time and we were virtual. She was like doing her little part or whatever. And I could tell I had trained with her maybe once or twice before this. And I could kind of tell that something was up, but I didn't know what it was. So she tells me on, like, one of our breaks, she goes, "Okay, I'm gonna let you take over for a minute. I just realized," she goes, "I haven't had caffeine since 1992, and I just realized that I took my husband's thermos today with his coffee, and he does drink caffeine." And so she was basically having, like, a caffeine high
Oh my god. That's
because she
wild.
hadn't had caffeine since 1992, and
That's a lifetime.
this was, like, 2020 because we
Oh
were doing it
no.
virtual, so this was, like
I wanna know what that feels like.
and she was wired, and so she was, like, chugging water.
Oh, no. So sad. I bet because I bet it's scary because it just makes your heart race, and you're just
Yeah,
like, yeah, that's wild sauce. No,
and
I don't
then
think I could go till 1992. That's
and
crazy.
then I also low key was like, "How does anyone do that? How do you, like, give up drinking
Caffeine.
decaf coffee? Is that even a real thing? Decaf
I
coffee."
had decaf the other day. It was like 1 in the morning. I went to sleep after. It was fine.
I mean, I can drink, like, decaf tea.
Mhm.
I like to drink some hot tea before bed that doesn't have caffeine in it.
See? It's
I don't
possible.
know.
It is
I don't
possible.
know.
It would hurt,
It would
but it's possible.
I would definitely get a headache,
Yeah, I think so.
which probably further highlights my addiction to caffeine.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't just be a headache, it would probably be a headache, itchiness, irritability,
Yeah.
followed by another habit.
But speaking of coffee, I am a official this is my official last sip.
Last sip. Okay. Bottoms
So
up.
that means that we are out of time today for our coffee break.
Sorry, guys. But you know what you can do? You can follow us on YouTube, like and subscribe, ring the little bell. Is that how YouTubers do it? Ring the little
Yes.
bell so you don't miss us ever.
We're on Apple, Spotify, really anywhere that you listen to your podcasts.
Mhm.
You can find us. And then
Listen
on the
to us.
socials, we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Threads. You can also find us on Patreon, where Megan and I are manifesting for year 2, filling that Patreon up with that exclusive content.
It's called the Coffee Break Crew. So
The
really,
Coffee Break Crew.
all of you have no choice. So go join us on
Yeah.
Patreon. Support the podcast in any way you can. We'd super appreciate it. Share us with your friends, family. You want to hear about something? Send it on over. We also have an email, notalonelycoffeebreak@gmail.com.
Thanks for joining us for another great episode of Not a Lonely Coffee Break. Again, we are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Megan.
Cheers,
Cheers, queer.
queer.